Hi, everybody. Welcome to GameTrailers of Thrones, our Game of Thrones podcast, episode 4. Jeremy Hoffman, unfortunately, is not with us this week. He is in Europe right now. He's gone over, took a boat to the Eastern Kingdoms. But I am joined by Mr. Ryan Stevens, who missed out on a couple episodes.
Yeah, I think this is only my second time.
And my wife, Amanda Troop, who is back.
Hello.
And Mr. Marco Rosado, who's back from vacation. So we have some fun faces to fill in. We're back at 4. From the first episode, we had to fill in.
Let's make this the best episode.
I
think episode 4 has been the best episode so far this season.
Is that, well, let's start with you. Is that your opinion?
Yeah, I just felt it was the most interesting. I felt like after, I was hoping for a double duty with in episode 3. So we can talk, whatever. With the hand severing and the lead up to the Unsullied, I thought we were going to get like a double dose of awesome. And I know they want to pace this stuff out, but I felt like there's been a lot of exposition in especially the very first episode and stuff, and I felt like we got a lot of good stuff. I thought Varys is one of my favorite characters even in the books, and I thought he was shown to his little darker side of Tyrion, and Tyrion kind of had a role reversal in this entire episode, kind of again just kind of being marginalized, which is interesting for a character that's obviously a fan favorite and kind of putting him into a more vulnerable position. I was a little weirded out with the pod stuff though, that continued into this episode.
Sex god, Podrick.
I want to know where that's going. Like,
is that gonna be like a season joke or something?
Yeah, I can't imagine that that's not Littlefinger. I mean, this is a theory, but I have to wonder if Littlefinger's got his hands in this somehow, because he has finger. I just don't know if I can buy like, oh yeah. And out of everything, Podrick being good in the sack is the only actual real thing that's not part of the game. Like, that doesn't seem to fit. That doesn't seem to fit in.
Well, in the last episode, I thought it was Tyrion just boosting his present a little bit more to Podrick, saying that he was so legendary. And I don't know if they were just keeping the joke going with, is it Roz? Is that her name?
Right.
Or it was just weird. It felt a little out of place, but funny.
I mean, I don't think we should theorize too much at this point in the conversation, but who is Roz working for? We don't know.
Yeah.
And there's no way for us to know.
And she's new to the
everything.
To the series, right?
She's
an amalgamation
She's
of
not
other
real.
characters.
She doesn't exist.
Jeez.
So, wait.
Are you Roz hater?
So you guys are saying that this is a conspiracy?
No, I think it's just a series gag.
If it's a gag, then it's sort of a weak gag, and it doesn't fit. So that makes me think, well, maybe it's a ploy. Maybe it's something, a distraction that's actually covering up some other intrigue. But we have no way of knowing because this wasn't in the books.
So what did you think of the episode?
I really liked it, and I wasn't on last week, but I thought the last 2 episodes were both excellent. But man, Daenerys! Gah!
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Okay, that was good, everyone. That was good.
I was so excited because I was waiting and waiting for this scene. I'm like, when is she going to speak Valyrian? When is she going to do it? When is she going to show that guy? And then I loved that they waited until she was there with her dragon, and then she's just like, yes, I speak Valyrian. I am this, descendant of these people. These are my dragons. This is my army. Like, I freaked out.
It was a delicate scene because in the book it's also like kind of crazy, right? It's like the idea of these people being handed the loyalty over, like just like that, and like they do explain it, but it seems like something that it's kind of hard to swallow, and it could be a scene that they could easily have fucked up. But I mean, add in the CG dragons, and of course it's gonna be a pretty good scene. But I felt like they did a really good job of like showing this like a risky move and having it kind of like.
You could see it. I really liked. I get my Mormonts confused. But is it Jorah that's with her?
Yeah.
Just the expression on his face, and like turning to Barristan. Like they don't have one line of dialogue the whole scene, but it's like
they're like, that's some woman.
Not the way I saw that ending. Mr. Rosado,
that scene with Dany was like almost page to page like the book. The only exception is that I think in the book all 3 dragons are unleashed. I'm not sure, but
well, you do see them at the end, but I remember she comes up with
Drogon.
With Drogon, and that whole thing plays out. And I was actually disappointed in last season when she goes into that temple of the, I don't remember what it's called. The Undying, and then she uses the Dracarys on
the warlock.
The warlock.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're showing their hand, but I still actually I think it led up to it nicely, and I think it reminded people what Dracarys does. So when she says it, you're like, oh, yes, and it's a much like those were just like little Bic lighters, like just like little flicker candle things on the warlock, and then last night Drogon was like, whoosh.
I remember it was actually a little more. I remember in the books they specifically say his head just vanishes, like he just kind of like bleh, onto like the top of his head. It was almost like lava, and his head just goes away.
But we've been waiting for this for what, 14 episodes, right?
The thing that Dani, her character, and she does nothing in book 2, really. I mean,
She does nothing through many books. I mean, she's strung along.
in book 1, she's more. I mean, she's super passive till the very end, where she decides to hatch the dragons, whatever. And book 2, she's just like, I need boats, I need dragons, you know. And she never really gets her way until she gets to Astapor. And like, after 2.5 years of watching the show, I mean, for people who haven't read the books, like this is like where her story really gets going. And
She's an army.
Yeah,
Like
she has an army.
More than
I
like
mean,
a handful of
so she needs
Dothraki.
boats, but she has an army.
And the dragons are killing people.
I do wonder though how they're gonna handle, like, you know, stretching her story out from here on, because I thought like this scene that you saw in this episode was gonna happen like 6 books. I mean,
I feel
6
confident with
episodes
that. I mean, we were talking about what's his face, Theon, right? Like all of that stuff's not really in this book.
in. It's
And-
really well done in the show, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that whole thing was like. I mean, I know people kind of figured a lot of that out from like the casting, because the actor was
Right.
known and stuff. I
Yeah.
figured people figured that out, but it was like, oh my god, like what's going on? And I kind of like when they go off script. You know, I think if you hew too closely to source material, it's not always a good idea. I felt like the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was kind of bad, and it was very close to the book. You know, just for a weird example. But
Well, it's interesting to notice
Gotta
what
make exceptions.
gets me excited about the show. You know, I think is it's this podcast is doing terrible things to me, because I'm looking forward to the controversy. You know, like I want us to have something, you know, to talk about, and the way they did this, or this was different than the books. And I actually talked to you first thing this morning, Marco, and I was like, you know, it's a pretty tame episode, and you were like, tame? Daenerys got her army, and I was like, well, yeah, but I knew that was going to happen.
I don't know. I liked all the stuff with the Hound. I liked all the stuff with the Hound. I liked all the stuff with Jamie and.
Oh, so should we recap?
Yeah, well, we can skip scenes we've already talked about, but we'll just go through scene by scene now that we've kind of gone through our favorite stuff. But that was good. It's nice to get the stuff we really liked, get that out of the way. So we start with Jamie and Brienne, and
The controversy continues.
poor Jamie drinking piss, and he's no good with his left hand, which we knew.
I knew that was pissed from the moment they get. It's like they're not just gonna give him water. Like,
Well, you're wondering, how did they get the horse to pee in the canteen, though? That's the bigger question.
Very carefully.
You never know what you might need. There were sorcerers and potions and stuff. It might be, you know. I'm sure there's some bread in Westeros that they use horse piss with.
Maybe he likes to drink horse piss. Maybe it's medicinal.
You never know when you might have a Lannister around to fake feed it to.
have to keep it around.
We have Varys or Varys or whatever. I'm just going to butcher it every time. Talking about his magical missing genitals, which
Yes.
is interesting. That I remember that kind of being an aside in the book that he just brings it up all of a sudden.
That was in the book, and that was I feel like that was when he and Tyrion started to become closer, and they actually started sharing more confidences. But what I don't remember from the book was the sorcerer in the cupboard.
I don't think that was in the book.
No, like, hey, look what I got. It's
like an Eli Roth film all of
UPS
a
just
sudden.
dropped this off, and
For a second, I thought that he was gonna open it and there was gonna be like 5 kids. You know, he uses the kids as spies.
it's a spoiler.
That's not a spoiler.
I think it's totally a spoiler.
People know this.
I don't think they know that's kids.
You know this, man.
I don't think they know that it's
Littlefinger
kids.
told Ned when they were walking in the courtyard in season 1, all these kids are
If you look at
whatever,
time
and then all the
code,
handmaidens
All
are
right.
Cersei's.
Okay, all right. I just think it's a spoiler. I'm just saying.
You're really delicate with this.
I'm very delicate with the spoilers.
But anyway, like I thought it was gonna be like I did not expect that dude with the I don't know what he had in his mouth.
Oh, his mouth was stitched shut.
Stitch shut. Okay, that's crazy.
Who knows why?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Well, are we going to get more explanation? What's Varys going to do with this guy? What do the writers have in store for us?
I think it's just. I mean, I don't think we're gonna see what happens.
It's gonna
to
be a
him. I think
spin-off
they're just gonna
series.
torture him. Like it's just
Sorcerer in a
he just
box.
imported him, and
imported him
he's
to.
like, I'm going to cut your junk off.
Yeah.
See if you like it.
I mean, I think that was just like a prop character. Obviously, I don't think that anything's gonna happen to him. I mean, he was just created for the show. I think.
Yeah, he was definitely created for the show. I just wonder why did we need to see that?
I think it's because Varys comes across as this kind of slightly effeminate, like mastermind. You know, he's the master of puppets, but he's not the instrument, but I think this shows you kind of a means to an end, that he is as vicious as anyone else on the council. We saw like the Septon guy, right, with the, showed that he's actually way more adroit than you would ever have guessed. And obviously Littlefinger is like the biggest schemer in the fucking world, right? But, like, they had a great line, he would have the world be ash if he could be king of it or something like that. Like,
He
poetry.
would burn the kingdom to ash if he could be king of it. Yeah.
Varys, I mean, I think this is the first episode where Varys is actually a main character. He has like
It was his
scenes that are-
episode. He was in a lot of
yeah, he
scenes.
was,
He was
wasn't
moving
He
around a
and
lot.
Littlefinger did have that kind of. They've had a couple of great one-off conversations. But
Season
yeah,
1 especially.
But this one is he definitely stole the show, which is interesting. Again, like not going too far into the books, but he is an interesting character throughout. And it's good to kind of link him back to the free cities and everything as well, because what's that one city called?
Lys?
No, the one where the dance Bravos, right?
Yeah,
Bravos sounds like the only place in this entire world where I'd want to live.
You keep every week you say that.
It's just Westeros doesn't sound good. These slave cities don't sound good. Bravos okay.
It's like Venice.
I'd go there.
What else happened last night?
So we meet, or revisit Gilly and Sam at Craster's Keep.
Yeah.
Gilly has her baby, or she's scared of her baby. Sam doesn't know what to do. I guess we can kind of, jump later to revisiting them. That Mormont gets an axe in the back and doesn't like it.
Unceremoniously. That's like a character that's been around since like the very first episode 3, I think, of the first season, and now he's dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, shit, it's a big deal, and he just like
for some
died.
reason, I think maybe because it was unceremoniously, like that those scenes didn't have much impact for me. And like I like Sam, but him kind of leading a scene or kind of being juxtaposed without Jon Snow, it is kind of weird. Like a lot of the stuff happening north of the Wall, post the Giant, haven't been very impactful for me.
Post the Giant.
The Giant was cool.
So
And
the
I will fully admit, like, I like when I see the dragons and when I see the cool
I
stuff.
think we've only been, I didn't actually look at how many minutes of time we got with that storyline, but I think we got like maybe 5 minutes or less of story with them. So it makes sense that it wouldn't be impactful because they aren't spending a lot of time on them right now. So, I think what we had to take away from that is now Sam is on his own with a woman and a newborn child. And how is he going to, he's only shown himself to be a coward. How is he now going to show himself to be a hero?
Craven.
Yeah, Craven.
They don't say Craven in this
They
series.
should say it, though, because it's a nice,
Small
interesting
clothes.
word.
They say Craven in season 1, I think. Rapers and Cravens, they say about the Night's Watch.
But I think we're just starting to get introduced to the tenuousness of the Night's Watch. Like in the first, when you hear, the Starks of Winterfell talk about the Night's Watch, it's just, the Brotherhood, and Benjen Stark was the Night's Watch. He loved the Night's Watch. It's like, well, maybe they're not all so great, and maybe their words only are words when you get in, dire situations like this, when you can have just 1 or 2 members of the Night's Watch kind of create this splinter.
I think the idea was that the strain was so great in this circumstance that they were all so hungry and so scared. And I think what we're really missing from this season was understanding just how bad the battle on the Fist of the First Men was, or was it the Fist of the First Man?
I think it's Men.
That battle was horrific, and I don't think we quite, they had the horse collage, or whatever you want to call it, the horse spiral of horse parts. But I don't think that quite shows you like how many men died and how that completely demoralized the remainder of the men. And the other thing is they all still look fit and healthy. The actors themselves, they didn't really make them look as sick and as starved as they were in the books. And so I think that's another reason why the impact wasn't as great.
I think Sam should have lost like 50 pounds since he went
well,
north.
he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't lose the weight in the book either. I think.
I know, yeah, but that's kind of like a...
Yeah, it would happen.
Yeah, it
I
should
guess.
happen.
Yeah.
I did like how they brought up winter and like the larder, because like sometimes like it's the long summer. Sometimes you forget, like you look at north of the wall and you're like, oh, it's snowing and everything, but
So that's winter.
it's
but
so
it's not,
hard to
yeah.
think of like how much worse it could get when winter comes, because it's such a weird concept of these long seasons, right? That it's always talked around, but only very indirectly ever really addressed. I appreciate that stuff.
A lot of people, I mean, I talked to a lot of people that are just casual viewers, and they still don't get the concept that winter is a long winter. Like it just goes over their head.
Well, because you have to think about, like, how does the globe rotate? I mean, really, because our seasons are controlled by, like, we're...
When the
like,
great dragon flies.
Yeah. So is it, like, rotating, like, kind of like
There's
this,
people,
and then,
there's
sometimes some years it rotates longer than other years, or...
there's people online that have made like a hypothetical reason to why the seasons last longer sometimes and sometimes they don't. It's like 'cause the Westeros planet is on a weird oblong orbit.
Oh, can we
That
put a link to that?
yeah, it's just some
Like right-
forum I
like
saw
right
once.
here,
I'm like,
can we
this is
put a
so
link?
weird. I'm sure Ryan would like that though.
Yeah.
I would like to
It's like the Dark Crystal and all the planet.
Oh,
The
yeah.
time of the Great Conjunction is at hand.
Yeah, well, it's like Planet X like has like a weird orbit around the sun.
It's cool, but like even in the first book, like it's talked about but never really explained. But it's one of those things where it is like, these are humans, right? But this is not Earth. And I like to have that kind of, especially because the first book had so few magical elements, and obviously that ramps up with each book and each season. But it's kind of cool to have that still kind of otherworldly thing happening. And I don't know where we are in the layout, but
So we have a brief visit with Brandon Stark and Jojen in the Green Dream. He climbs a tree, Cat yells at him, he falls out of the tree.
is Kat like obligated to be in every episode or something?
I'm gonna say something about that though. I think the show hasn't really introduced Joe and Mira really well.
Jojen and Mira?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're still like, they just showed up and say, "Oh, we're gonna help you. We've been looking for you." It's like, okay, and they never explain. I mean, they really don't.
They don't really get to that in the books for a while.
I know they do, but for television, like going 4 episodes without explaining these 2 kids that have magical powers and are really good with a bow and arrow and can go into Bran's dreams, that's kind of like, okay, you need to explain this at some point.
Yeah, well, maybe next episode they will.
I hope so. I mean, because their story is really interesting because their father is one of Ned Stark's like best friends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe something they're just holding on to. But they, definitely a lot more
There-
to
it's
explain
really
there.
dense right now, though. It's like super dense. Like the story, like it's so scattered right now in the show that some episodes you don't see points of view. I mean, you don't see characters that for 2 episodes. Like Stannis, I'm pretty sure you won't see for the next 2 episodes. We didn't see Jon Snow in this episode, which is like he's a main character. And Dany, I don't think we saw her in the previous episode. Or
Nope, we did.
Yeah, okay, in episode 2, I think.
No, but like first episode we didn't see Arya, right?
Yeah, there's characters that they had to take out of entire episodes because there's just so many
Yeah,
stories.
you only have time in that 1 hour to say hi to everybody, and then just it's over.
Yeah, which is, I mean, and it's gonna get more
I will say,
fragmented.
every time I see Bran Stark's hair, I laugh.
Every time I see
It's
Bran
amazing.
Stark standing, I laugh because he's like 5'11" or something, and it's like this little kid from like, I mean, the show, how much time has passed? Like a year, I think, and now he's like, whoa, and Sansa's like super tall, and I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah,
and his
Sansa does
voice
not
is
look
all
13 or whatever
He's
she's
not
supposed to
13.
be.
They're all older.
So do you rewrite the story, or do you just not focus on them being so young, or have people...
Suspension of disbelief, I guess. It's because it's also like trying to match times where what's happening on Dany's continent versus this continent. It's like, whatever, I'll let some of that movie magic happen. Even in the books, I feel like time happens. Like there's still only rumors of dragons existing getting back to Westeros, and people are like, yeah, that's a lie. But there's been like campaigns fought and stuff, without saying too much.
We already talked about Varys and Roz talking about Podrick the
Great.
Fantastic, and Littlefinger going to the
Well,
Eyrie.
I think
Truth
the
at the
more
beds.
the more important thing is that they go, okay, so Littlefinger is interested in Sansa. How do we get in the way of that? How do we prevent Littlefinger from marrying Sansa and taking over the North, basically?
Are they showing Littlefinger's hand more than they did in the book?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's
Oh,
what I thought. Like in the
way
book,
more. In the book,
you didn't know he was really, you didn't know he was interested in Sansa.
Chris discovered his ears, man.
Oh well,
Like,
the reason.
beyond what they've shown in the show.
Okay, but I mean, it's rather obvious. The reason is because Littlefinger was in love with Catelyn, and
Right.
Sansa looks. I mean, at least in the book, she looks like how Catelyn used to look like when she was a teenager, and Littlefinger's a pervert, so.
Well, I
interested
mean,
in
but Sansa is marrying age, so he's not as perverted
She's certainly older in the show than she is in the book, so it's not as perverted.
It's not as perverted.
So we'll let that one pass.
Yeah,
She's like a head taller than
it's
him,
still
too.
kind of perverted.
Speaking of perverts, so we then slip over to Joffrey and Marjorie, who are hanging out in one of the coolest sets I've ever seen on the show. They're in
Yes,
this
I was
awesome
so-
tomb, walking around for this
I
totally
could not listen
random,
to what they were saying.
This
It's so
totally
beautiful.
random
I was just
scene.
looking at the images.
You're like,
it
how
was
can
so
I build this in
amazing.
Minecraft?
I want to. I mean, Westeros Craft probably
But
did
there's
already.
not. That's not in some like tower in Great Britain or
Oh
something.
yeah,
I mean,
it's gotta be. I mean, they shoot them, but they shoot a lot of things at different locations. I bet that this is some real place that they then added like dragons to or
I
something.
mean, they just make reference to the Targaryens having built it, and so that seems pretty bold for them to claim something that's already, been built or that someone might recognize. Some tourists are like, wait, I've been there. Like in Last Crusade, where it's like, oh, this is where the Grail is, and like all these parents were like, that's where I went in the '80s.
But speaking of sets, I don't think they've shown the Iron Throne this season. Have they?
No.
No, not yet, huh?
I mean, in a talking production, they
Yeah.
can only have money to make so many sets, and from what I've seen in the previews, like they're gonna use that the Temple of the Seven, is it called? They're gonna use that set more. I think they might have just not done the Iron Throne set this season.
Well, considering you can buy the Iron Throne at HBO.com, or
Oh, the plastic Iron Throne.
that's real metal. It's like
Is it?
$10,000 or something. It's
Oh
ridiculous.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a one-to-one replica.
If you have the cast, you know what I mean, the die cast or whatever, might as well. Just pour the lid in, ship it, done.
It's $1,500 to ship that.
But I just thought, that it's ended in a little impromptu waving ceremony from Marjorie and Joffrey. Like, just Marjorie gaining favor with Joffrey, playing him. Joffrey finally getting, bested by somebody, mentally that can make him do whatever he wants to do without getting him all pissed.
Well, I thought that
like
scene was
everybody else just-
executed really well too, from a production standpoint, because obviously Marjorie's like a master of like realpolitik, even though she's like 17. But even in the way they had the crowd chanting her name a lot, but you heard some Joffrey's thrown in, so it wasn't too overbearing in one stance. And still just him, that kind of fear and the mothering weird angle, that like really messed up relationship that he has with everyone.
Yeah, having her in the background watching and going, huh.
And I love Marjorie's like just like casual, like she's like, when she looks at him like, "What's up?" and Joffrey's like, "Okay," like timid.
But he's like, I kind of enjoy this.
Yeah, I know.
I get like a weird like Schindler's List, like was it Ralph Fiennes who's like shooting random people in a concentration camp? It's like, but like mercy is where you get the real acceptance. I feel like Joffrey's kind of like a Nazi, so it's not that hard to make that leap.
But interesting, you talk about showing a character's hand. I think we're seeing much more of Marjorie's hand this season. We didn't really see her up to much of anything.
I mean,
in,
Marjorie
in book
is
3.
just like, I mean, is the Queen of Thorns her grandmother?
Is your grandmother?
Yeah, I mean, she's like a tiny version of her. I mean, it's great to
They're
watch
politicians.
that. Yeah, no, but it's great to
cool.
watch like how, how she emulates her grandmother, because her grandmother's like at various levels of scheming. I mean, she's really good.
I mean, you saw how she handled Varys in the one scene. She was like, he says, "Hello, may I sit?" And she goes, "No." "No, I don't think so. What do you want?" "I know who you are and I know what you're up to. Let's talk honestly." So, and we had that scene too with Varys and the Queen of Thorns and
Cersei and her
And-
as well.
Cersei and,
Grandma.
yes, that was in there.
Yeah, that was good too.
That was good.
Kind of the weird like men make the world, and we have to try to make them not die and all that kind of weird sexist stuff.
I gotta watch that scene again.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was
And
looking at
mothers
the
do
set.
what they
I missed
can
it.
That's
to
right.
keep their sons from the
That was
grave.
really good.
I think that's from the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. But we see Varys continuing to work out the plan of getting Sansa to marry someone else by talking to the Queen of Thorns, and then we get right after that the scene with Marjorie and Sansa talking about, "Oh, would you like to marry my cousin Loras?" And of course, Sansa would love to do that. Why wouldn't you want to
Even
marry
though she doesn't know.
this beautiful Knight of Flowers? Doesn't really. I think even if she found out that she would never consummate her marriage with him, I think that she'd still be better off with him. Yeah. And I think she'd be totally fine with it.
Well, I hope that works out for her.
Yeah.
So we skip over kind of a throwaway scene. We skip over to Jamie and Brienne, just wondering why he helped her, and
Oh, I
establishes
liked
that
that
she
scene.
knows, and everything between them I think is
I
really,
think
really
that
well
needed
done.
to be said because I feel like more than one person has asked me in the last week or so, why did Jamie help Brienne?
Whatever.
Brienne.
Just pick one and go with it.
The tall
I
lass.
still
Own it.
like.
Own it.
I'm sorry, guys. I listened to the books on tape first, so I'm gonna default to Roy Dotrice's pronunciation. So it's
Brain.
Brian for me.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Brain?
I'll allow
No,
it.
Brian. Brian of Tarth. But anyway, a lot of people ask like, why did Jamie stick up for her? Why did he save her? And I'm glad that they actually explained it on the show. You know.
Or he doesn't really say anything, right? He just
No.
kind of looks off.
But
And,
it's acknowledged.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that maybe Jamie isn't the horrible person that he's known to be, and get to see some other sides of his character.
I can't wait. Speaking of pronunciation, we moved to Cersei and her daddy talking about politics, and Cersei calls them the Tyrells, and Tywin calls them the Tyrells. So I think everybody needs to calm down about pronunciations. I know we're going to see comments anyway, but I thought that was really interesting. It's kind of like Lando calling him Han Solo. You know, it's like either. I mean, I'm sure it's probably just the director being like, I'm not going to say anything. It's Charles
really
Dance.
good
I don't want to correct
scene.
him.
Yeah.
But or vice versa. You know.
Yeah, maybe it's just people have different accents. I mean, I know in the last episode of the last season, Jack and Hakar says Vala Mogulis,
Oh yeah.
and then Miss Sunday is her name.
Yeah.
She says Valar Morgulis with a r, and I was like,
Sure.
just different sides of the world, you know.